afternoon for everyone. Thank you for coming, especially on Friday, when, as you know, in Palestine, Friday is a very special day. And in my village, all the village, we eat one thing in this day, which is mlokhia and chicken. Judge Muhammad, if you say so. A lot of people, they don't participate you can't do anything after the prayer of the afternoon. So you pray in the afternoon and then you go to eat mlokhia, so you can't do any. So for me, I understand that it's something big that you're coming on Friday. So Friday is a very important day for rest, especially for us. Actually, when we are coming here as Palestinians, it's always very easy to us to speak about the Palestinian case and to have empathy and love from Turkey, but we think it's not enough. Love is not enough, especially in struggles. So this is why we are coming to Turkey and trying to speak about our case and trying to bring the details in order to know how to analyze the struggle, and know how to analyze Israel, and how to analyze this big conflict between us and the Zionist movement. So feelings are not enough. This is the first thing that I'm saying. I'm starting with it. In order to know how to make also achievements, we need to, in order to have achievement. If anyone wants water, 3 here. In order to have achievements, we need also to be focused on details and to speak and to explain what is the struggle about. I'm not coming here only as a researcher, as someone who is working in research. As you know, I'm also a political activist in a lot of aspects. We can also speak about it in the discussion. I will try to have less and less in the lecture, less time in the lecture, and to leave more time for the questions and discussions, and to have ideas from you and to learn from you. I will start with the structure of the lecture today. I will start with the historical background, and then I will move to aspects of legal status of Palestinians in Israel. I will speak about 3 aspects. First aspect that I'm going to speak about is the political and civil status. Second aspect is the social and cultural status, and the land and planning status, which is one of the most important things, as you know, or one of the most important aspects when we are speaking about a colonial state, which is Israel, who has this idea of, or main idea of more lands or less Palestinians on more lands. This main idea started mainly in the first years of the century of the 19th century. So, and it's still until today, and we will see how it's still until today the main idea that controls the Zionist movement. Then I'm moving to speak about the development of the political discourse. I'll speak about the several approaches inside the Palestinian minority in Israel, Palestinian society in Israel, and afterwards I will move to speak about the political status in the last years, and this is my thesis, my master thesis is about, and I'm focusing a lot about the last 10 years. I think there is very interesting things are happening in the last 10 years in Palestine, and from this to start to think how Israel behave and what is Israel trying to do, and how to analyze Israel from this, not only to think about us, but also then to listen to your ideas, but also how we can analyze Israel, not only how we speak about us, how we analyze our society. And then I will speak about the strategic importance of the Palestinians in Israel. And in the end, if we will have time, I will speak about Jerusalem, and maybe some of your questions will be about this. So we'll leave special time maybe in the questions for it. I will start with historical background. The political the main. You can leave him. You can leave him, no problem. The main event in the history of the Palestinian or the modern history of the Palestinian nation is the Nakba. And why is the Nakba? Because in the Nakba, as you can see here, what happened is, of course, this doesn't include what happened in the Nakba, but it says a lot about what happened in the Nakba. What happened in the Nakba was very big for us as Palestinians, because what could Israel do after the war of 1948 is to expel most of the Palestinian nation, which is more than 800,000 of Palestinians were expelled, which is the most of the Palestinian nation. They were expelled to several places, mainly the countries near the Arab countries in the Middle East, in the region. First, some of them were expelled to Lebanon, some to Syria, some to Jordan, and some to Egypt. And there is also some people who were expelled to next villages or to Gaza or to the West Bank, but mainly to the Arab countries. And a lot of them, of course, some of them are living here from long time in Turkey. A lot of them are here for a long time in Turkey. So some also came to Turkey, to abroad, everywhere, Europe and the US, and more states. And I'll give you some numbers in order to try to understand why it was this big, the Nakba. We are speaking about 514 villages and cities were expelled. We are speaking about expelling the main cities of the Palestinians, main important cities, cultural, economical. We're speaking about Jaffa, Akka, Haifa, and Jerusalem. So it wasn't also that the Zionist movement, that they just moved few villages to here or there. What they tried to do, or what they did also, is to expel most or all of the leadership of the Palestinians in general and the Palestinians in Israel, And in addition, they mainly also expelled the middle class of the Palestinians. So who stayed, the cities that stayed in Israel, the Palestinian cities that stayed in Israel is only Nazareth, which is in the north, and villages. So you can already start to think about, and I will start to speak about them later, about the Palestinians in Israel. You can start to think about this moment of the 1948. If we start to think about it, about these people, and I'm speaking about this part. If we are now in the 48, we are here. The part, the white part. This was Israel, the white part, and inside of this, we had in 1948 the Palestinians in Israel. These Palestinians who stayed. We spoke about Palestinians who expelled to the Arab countries, and then Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, and Jerusalem, and the fourth part of the Palestinians are the Palestinians in Israel. The number of these Palestinians in 1948 was 160,000 Palestinians. A small minority living inside of Israel. Now, then came Israel, started to think what we can do with them. Because the plan of 48 of the Israelis in the 1948, the plan was to expel all of the Palestinians, or at least like the real majority of them, 90% of them, 95% of them. But unfortunately, some Palestinians stayed in Israel. And now there is a new regional status. They can't anymore expel more because the war stopped. There is no any legitimation to expel these hundreds of thousands of people that stayed in Israel. And Israel was a new, it wasn't big and strong like today. It wasn't or at least its name, its shuhra, popularity wasn't in this. They didn't have this myth of strong yet in the 48. They had it afterwards in the 67, by the way. After they won against ready regimes Arabs for war, not. But if you think Israel wasn't this big, wasn't this strong and had this popularity. So, if you are starting to think about Palestinians in Israel, they were, for the Zionist movement, a big threat. Why they were a big threat? First, from demographic reasons. If Israel wants to establish a Jewish state, what it should do with 90% Palestinians? And as you know, they thought also, or they knew, that we as Arabs and Middle Easterns, we bring more kids than them. Also because they are coming from Europe and every family is two, three kids and one dog. They thought, okay, these Arabs, these Muslims have, every family has 9 children and could bring. Could it be a project maybe of bringing more Palestinians in order to be majority? So this was the first threat. The second threat is a political threat. If you think about it, if these Arabs, okay, they are here, we can't expel them, but if they don't accept the new order, the new regime, it's a problem. But if they do accept it, okay, we can live with it. We still if they say, and then I will start later to speak about it, how they did these goals. This is why I'm also speaking about this historical background. Don't worry if you think now you don't know why I'm speaking about these things. So I will arrive to this, to what they did in order to achieve these goals. Third threat was the security threat, which is, these Palestinians, they just fought against us, against the Israelis few months before, and they still have this. Maybe they thought that the Palestinians still have these connections to the Palestinians in Jordan or in Syria, so they can communicate with them and do something. It wasn't right thing, because the Arab world and the Muslim world lived in a big Nakba, and they didn't know what's happening to them. So nobody thought about these Palestinians in Israel and how we can use them in the first years. They were totally left, and the Muslim and the Arab world totally left the Palestinians inside of Israel, and didn't think that they can be they can be a good. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Alaikum assalam. The fourth threat was the social threat, and I will speak about this later. I'll leave it to later. And of course, one of the most important threats was the land, which is something, as I said, for every colonialization, but mainly for the Israeli, especially for the Israeli colonialization, was very, very important. The land problem, or the land control, because first of the main goal that I spoke about, and also because the land threat was connected to every other threat, like connected to, and I will show these things later, but it was connected to the political threat, to the social, to security, and a lot of things, and I will arrive to them later. So the Palestinians, Stefan. So this threat continued. To be very, very strong, and what they decided to do is a military regime. This military regime was between 1948 until to the 1966, and the motivation of it was to control these Arabs, these Palestinians in Israel, from the threats that I spoke about, to control any action that they could do, any political action that they could do. Just, for example, I can tell you that not even one Palestinian party was allowed. All of the parties were prohibited. Even new parties, people who tried to create new parties, it wasn't allowed. And the only one party that was allowed is the Israeli Communist Party, and this also not from reasons of being good to these Palestinians or letting them having one party. It was mainly because of first of all, because this Communist Party also part of it fought with Israel in 1984, and because of their good relationships with the Soviet Union then. So this party was very connected to the leadership in Russia. We have even a joke in Palestine about it, that when it's raining in Russia, the communists in Palestine, they hang up the umbrella even when it's hot in Palestine. So this is the second thing that they wanted to control is I would say consciousness. They didn't want, and I will speak about it also later, I will speak about it about how they tried to do this, they tried to control the minds of the Palestinians, how they tried to control them and to tell them and to use this kind of propaganda in order to change their identity from Palestinians, from Arabs, from Muslims to an identity which is Israeli Arab, like one more kind of Israelis, not a Palestinian which is connected to other Palestinians. The second thing is excluding, and the third thing is discriminating. It was very important to put these Arabs and these Palestinians in their ghettos, and not to let them see or communicate with also the new regime that started in Palestine, only as workers, only as very low status workers. So then, from then, now I want you to try to understand these people, what's happening to them in this country that just won against 7 Arab countries in the war against 7 Arab countries, and you are in the 48 and you are living under this country. So you can start to imagine if everyone betrayed us and everyone is not supporting us in the moment, what was the situation of these people at that time, at these times. The military regime didn't end it was formally ended in the 66, but the thoughts of the military regime, let's say the results of the military regime stayed for years and years and years, and in a lot of aspects it's still until today. For example, my father or my grandfather who lived under military regime is still telling me today, when I'm coming to Turkey, be careful to speak against Israel, because he knows even every word that I can say against Israel, then in the military regime, of course now there is some changes, but also changes from the same reasons of controlling and excluding, but they are still telling us, our grandfathers and fathers, be careful, don't say this and say that. Be careful. One of the most important, one of the most famous myths that was after the military regime is that they will put a black point on you if you will speak about politics, any politics. If you join any party, if you try to do anything about politics. So these are the 3 aspects that stayed and still until today, and later we'll speak about some cases that still until today. I can already tell you that yesterday one very, 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 I would say, very important and very insane law that passed in the Israeli Knesset, which is the Muazzin law, which is this law that decided, and now it's for the first hearing. I think in the next weeks it will come to the. I can stand for the people if you can't see me. So one of the laws that just passed yesterday or the day before, I don't remember exactly, is the Muazzin law, which tries to prohibit to not allow the Muazzin from with the prayers, and And this is, by the way, now I said I'm not here only as a researcher, but also as an activist. I had also before a lecture in the university. This is the first thing, the main thing that I spoke about. Like, I asked people to do something about this. This is very important for us now, and we are in the moment. We are thinking how to struggle against it, which kind of things we can do against this very, very dangerous law. So the aspects that I'm going to speak about is political and civil status, the social and cultural status, and land and planning. So, how do you drink this? Okay. The first kind of laws, I spoke that the first aspect is political and civil status, but first kind of laws is Jewish and democratic state laws. And these laws started at the first 20 years, the first 10, 20 years of Israel. Most of them the first 5 years. And they mainly spoke about what is the identity of Israel. And they spoke about that Israel is a Jewish state, Jewish democratic state. Now, of course, then later in the 90s, we said you can't be Jewish and democratic, you should choose. You can't be this and that. Or as we say, you can't dance in two parties. Yes? Or marriage parties. ما بتقدر ترقص بعرسين. So you should choose between Jewish and democratic. But the Israeli law mainly there was no questions about it. This question of is it Jewish or democratic, because it was mainly the state of Jewish people. It wasn't a democratic, it's the state of Jewish people. Now these laws, we identify them as racist laws and of course colonial laws, because they put people under this regime, under the Israeli regime, they give them, and to be clear, they gave the Palestinians in Israel citizenship. So you put people inside of your territory, inside of your state, and you give them citizenship, and you don't give them their full rights. So which kind of regime is that if you give them citizenship and not giving them their rights? So these laws, first law is law and government ordinance, and it speaks about official holidays. Now, of course, just to be clear, these are not all of the laws about the Israeli regime. I'm just bringing few examples about them. We have more than 100 racist and colonial laws, which is speaking mainly or touching mainly the Palestinians in Israel and other Palestinians, but there are very specific laws that touching mainly the Palestinians in Israel. This first law is about official holidays. You can't see there any word about Muslim or Christian holidays. By the way, Palestinians in Israel are 80% Muslims, 9% Christians, 81% Muslims, 10% Christians, and 9% Druze. The second law is the flag law, the state stamp law, the law about entry to Israel, which allows, and this is like there are some laws, and I'll speak about them later. There are some laws that exist only in Israel. There is no one regime in the world that has them. There is one more law is the World Zionist Organization, which they made it a very colonial, very racist. They just made massacres, and they just put them very legally in law. So you can see from the first day, these are the laws that excluded Palestinians from it. Now, these are the times that the relationship between the Palestinians and Israel. These are the laws that design this relationship. One more law that I want to speak about is the Foundation of Law Act, which is granting the Jewish law, the Jewish religious law, halakha, as a source of when the judge, for example, in a court, when the court can't have any source to explain the law, so they can go to the halakha. So Israel, the Jewish state, not only for Jewish people, also for the Jewish religion. So it's not only Jewish, it's not only putting Jewish people as first class in Israel, but also putting the religion as the first class. And there is like a very big combination between the secular leaders of Israel. And for example, I can tell you about Herzl, which was the guy who mainly spoke about, like the founder of the Zionist movement. He was a total secular, he spoke about a synagogue. When he went to a synagogue, he wrote, I felt that I'm going to a pig's farm. He was this secular. Some people said he was almost anti-Semitic, but he could make this combination with the religious leadership of the Jewish people. And we can speak about this more later, if you want. Now, I want to speak about two main laws that they say in Israel. These laws invented the regime. It's not that the regime brought them. The law brought the regime, which is the law of return and the citizenship law. These two laws are saying, I'm concluding them, I'm just summarizing them, these two laws saying that every Jewish in the world can immigrate to Israel and have in the moment, already in the airport, could have the citizenship and could have the status of any citizen in Israel, any Jewish citizen in Israel. Even if he doesn't know English, there is no one law in the world like this. Even in colonial states, there was no one law like this. I read 3-4 researches, I think, about this. They try to compare it to other citizenship laws in the world. There is no one is like this racist and colonial law. And the paradox here, or the absurd thing, is that who is Jewish? And according to these laws, Jewish who is a grandson, who can be a grandson of a Jewish. If your grandmother is Jewish, so you have in any moment, and still until this day, even if you are working in the US, in Europe, you can every moment immigrate to Israel and have the citizenship there. But for example, Palestinians who were expelled in 48, this is very important because a lot of people don't know that the Palestinians, they not only that they were expelled, they tried to come back during the 40s and during the 50s. There was a massive amount of people who tried to come back to go inside to their villages. Some of them could do it, not a lot, but a lot of people were killed on the borders. So it's not a normal refugee problem. You know, the Palestinians that were expelled to the Arab world. Now, if you think, for example, about Syria today, and there is a lot of refugees, and it's a very just case, very just refugee case. But the refugees, after one day that they are outside Syria, they still, a lot of them, or if they want to go back, okay, of course they will be shot because there is still a war there. But they still have this ability to go back. I'm speaking about the legal ability. Don't get me wrong. I know it's the situation in Syria is very bad now, but at least they have the ability to go, but they don't have the legal ability to go. So Palestinians tried to go back, and hundreds of Palestinians were shot on the borders. I think more than, and I don't know the exact number, I think between hundreds and thousands. I'm not sure of the number. So now you can try to more understand what these people felt when their siblings tried to come back, their brothers and sisters when they try to come back. So you live in Palestine, you live under the Israeli, you will start to work with them, but in the same day maybe your brother was shot or someone was shot when he was trying to go back to Palestine, to his village. I'll go to the second aspect, which is the social and cultural status. And I will also present few laws. First one is trade with the enemy, which didn't allow Palestinians and still to be in communication with their siblings in the Arab world. And I can tell you that until the 90s, I know stories of people that until the 90s they didn't see their brothers and sisters, and they only, and this is like a very big paradox, we were against the agreement between Jordan and Israel, peace agreement between Israel and Germany and Israel in the 90s, but only after this agreement people could travel to Jordan and meet their siblings from Syria who came to visit them in Jordan. So think about these connections between people, these meetings, when a person saw his sister last time at age 8 or age 9, and then in age 52 or 53 or 60, I don't know, they met again. So this is the law that doesn't allow it. This is a very important law, the state education law, because it started. Here they started to speak. I spoke before about identity, and here they started, and even before, but here they put it as a law, and here they started. When they thought how to control this identity, the main thing to do is how to control the schools. So the Shabak, the intelligence service, they control the schools. they control the schools in two ways. First way is they put the materials that you can study in the school. For example, I only studied at school. I only studied about the history of the Jewish nation. I only studied about the Holocaust. I only studied about and when we were studying about Arabs or about Muslims, they only spoke, for example, about how the Abbasi Empire was very, very bad, and what are the bad things that happened in the Abbasi and the Ottoman Empire, what they only bad things did to us. So, and when some teachers started to speak a little bit about some things that happened in the Nakba, or to say we are Palestinians and this is what happened to us, they were just fired. They fired, and so this is the regime of the first year. Until today, there is still of this regime, but this is how they could control the Palestinians, because there is a lot of questions, and you can check. There is new researchers speaking about why these Palestinians didn't resist, why they didn't fight Israel, the Palestinians inside Israel. So these laws and these policies can give a little bit of answers about this question. So if you think about these guys, these rural villages in Israel, and this regime on them, how it could influence them. In 1965, this law, it was a policy, and then they made it as a law. They started to protect the holy sites, and in the law, it's written in the law that they say that this law is protecting the Jewish sites, and from them. And from 48, of course, when they started to destroy the cities, but also from them they are trying to, if not to destroy, to disappear a lot of the mosques and a lot of the churches inside of the territory of Israel. This is a very, very nice mosque on the beach. It's called Sidi Ali. They could destroy the whole city, the whole village, but for some reason they didn't destroy the mosque. And then they started to try to not officially destroy it, and it wasn't like this. It was way worse than this. And then Palestinians, mainly the Islamic Party, worked on renewing it and reconstructing it. By the way, still until today, the cemetery of this mosque, Sidna Ali, they are still destroying it. It's very close to Herzliya. Very, very close. It was a village. Sidna Ali was a village very close to Herzliya. And they are still, until today, they are destroying these cemeteries, destroying the cemetery. And I know a wonderful guy he's living there, and he's every day going to build this building to the cemetery again and again every day, and it's a big fight about this cemetery. These are more laws. The law about Yad Yitzhak, which granting these social institutes to have a lot of rights, a lot of power to work among the Palestinian minority. The religious Jewish services law. This is a very interesting law because the Palestinians in Israel for in a lot of places, if you go to slaughterhouses, a lot of slaughterhouses in madhabih, in Turkish. Yeah, mizbaha. Okay. A lot of Palestinian slaughterhouses are still under the regime of the kosher, or the halakha law, which is you should have. There is a rabbi, a religious Jewish guy, who comes to your slaughterhouse and tell you if it's okay or not. If everything that you are doing is under this halakha, or as your meat is kosher, he gives you this stamp of kosher. So not all of the Palestinians are like this in Israel, but in some places, yes. And of course, you know the case of Al-Aqsa Mosque. You know, a lot of mosques also, they moved it to be bars and restaurants. For example, there is a bar in Caesarea. There is a bar in the Mosque of Caesarea. There is a bar in the Mosque of, or a wine festival in the big Mosque of Bir Saba, Beersheba, in Beersheba. But on the other hand, I will also speak later about what we are trying to do against these things. Social and cultural status. These are very also important laws. This law is banning unification between Palestinian families inside of Israel and Palestinian families in Gaza and the West Bank, and also the Arab world. I spoke before about this law. It's a very tragic law. A lot of people are living in an everyday threat. What we are speaking about here is if you want to marry, if you are from Israel, a Palestinian from Israel, and you want to marry a Palestinian from Gaza or the West Bank, you can't, or she can't marry you, or you can't marry her, or he or she, and live inside of Israel. And this is also a very unique law for Israel. Because if you're a citizen and you get married to someone, you always can get this unification with your partner. The main problem here is it's not only prohibiting. It's a new law, by the way. It's from 2002-3, but started in 2002. The main problem here is, and I think every Palestinian here knows people who are like this, but the main problem here is it's not only the Palestinians. They are not telling you don't marry a Palestinian. It's not only about the future. It's also about the past, because it is aparting families. It's the reason, the goal of it is to send women and men from Gaza and the West Bank, to send them back or already married and or stays in the territory of Israel, but they want to send them back to Gaza or the West Bank or Gaza or I don't know if it's from the Arab world. So imagine these people who are living at this kind of everyday threat. And of course they can't move freely. Of course, they can't. I know, for example, a woman that I worked as a lawyer in her case, and she doesn't have the identity card, and she wants to renew it, and they are not renewing it to her. There's a lot of cases like this, and she can't do anything. She's just illegal there for years and years. And there are some people that illegal for 40 years or 30 years they can't travel, they can't have they're unknown inside of the Palestinian society in Israel. Or not unknown, illegal or without identifying it from the state. The other law is the Nakba law, and this is also connected to when we are speaking about identity. One of main Israeli goals was to change the identity of the Palestinians in Israel from Palestinians to Israelis, and from a lot of aspects they could do it. Unfortunately, they could do it. This is one of the laws that they tried to. It's from the last years, but it's mainly speaking about if you say that the Independence Day of Israel is not my holiday. It's not my holiday. It's a massacre. It's a Nakba. Then, if you're a foundation, you don't get any money from the state. For example, schools can't say that. And if you are a person, a normal person, you can't have any formal attitude formal job in the state. And it includes, when I'm speaking about jobs in the state, it could be it could be a teacher. I'm not speaking here about being a chief of a team in the Interior Ministry. I'm just speaking about a lot of kind of jobs that you can't do if you say and if you join this kind of demonstrations. This is a very also, as I said, the land and planning was through years between colonialization everywhere in the world, between colonialization and the native nation was the main struggle. And what Israel did is the land that Israel is owning today is 93% of the whole land in Israel. So, and this is owned by the state. The Palestinians in Israel, they are a 20% minority or 20% society in Israel, but in the same time, they of course own the whole land. We owned more than 95% of the land before 48. Few days, or let's say few years, not days actually, after 48, we had only 3%. So from 95% to 3%. This was also one of the problems, because the Palestinian society in Israel, if they were, and I spoke, it was villages. If they took the land, so what they do with you if they took the land? You can't work in your own land, but you can work in the land that they own now. So you can work in your land, but they give you, everyday money. Like they pay you for your work, not because it's your land. They pay you as a worker. So here there is two main important laws. the Absentee Property Law, which says that everyone who wasn't in Israel in 49, the state could take his land. This includes Palestinian, and this is also a very important word. This includes Palestinians who became refugees inside Israel, inside the territory of Israel. For example, if I am from Ma'lul, which is a village in the Gelin, if you were expelled from Ma'lul to Nazareth, which is 5-6 kilometers from Nazareth, you can't go back to Ma'lul. And it's not your land anymore because of this law. Because you weren't there then in the 48, but you can go then. You are not crossing borders. You're not coming. It's not a refugee that will come from Lebanon or Syria. So there is refugees also inside of the territory of Israel. This law is also very, very important because with this law, they can also take any land that they want, just because one thing, if there is a public reason. Imagine how many public reasons there could be. For example, they can say, by the way, and this is one of the cases that I worked also as a lawyer in, that they wanted to have a green place there. A lot of places, because of green reasons, so they take your land because of making it nice, because in order to have it nice. Now, of course, they didn't use it against Jewish people. These laws are not used against Jewish people. And it just says how this development of the relationships between the two sides were developing at these times. Now I'll move from the legal aspect. I hope it wasn't very boring to speak about the political aspect. And I'm always trying to connect both. Now the development, I want to speak about the development of the political discourse inside, like among the Palestinians in Israel and inside the Palestinian Israel. And I think there is 3 generations. The first generation was the generation of the military army regime. If you think, I spoke a lot about them because I'm very influenced also personally, by the way. Our fathers and our grandfathers lived then, and they're still speaking in this feeling of the military regime. For example, don't go to demonstrations because they might kick you out of the country. Imagine how much fear this military regime did then. So this first generation is the generation of the generation who lost the land. And you feel the loss. When you speak to them, you feel the loss. I'm speaking here only about the Palestinians in Israel. And here you can definitely, if you speak with almost any of them, they will speak in the same. There were of course some tries to do different things, to do very revolutionary, let's say, speech against Israel, but very quickly Israel could finish this phenomena. If you know the movement of al-ard, harkat al-ard, and very quickly they outlawed them and didn't let them do any movement or any political action. The second generation is the generation who is the generation who didn't live the Nakba. The generation who didn't see the Nakba, didn't live exactly the whole thing or the first years of the military regime. And these guys and girls, these guys, they were more proud of themselves, mainly because of some reasons, of course, but because they started to work more, to earn more money. In the 67, something very, also a big paradox happened to the Palestinians, because in the 67, Israel occupied the West Bank and Gaza. It was a big tragic thing for us as Palestinians in Israel and for the whole Arab and Muslim world. But it was good in at least one thing, that Palestinians could meet each other. Palestinians from West Bank and Gaza could meet the Palestinians in Israel. Then it started a very interesting connection between, or relationship between the two sides. We are still laughing about it every time that we meet the friends from Gaza and the West Bank, and how people could meet, the same nation, but they met after 20 years. They were cut. These Palestinians were inside of a cage or alone, and then they met after 20 years. So they could see Palestinians like them. Like we as rurals, I'm coming from a village, and all of us, most of us are villagers. So, for example, for the first time we saw Nablus and Tulkarem, which is, I know if someone from Nablus here, he might say, there is nothing in Nablus. For us it was a big thing to go to a Palestinian city, because we were just for 20 years living in these villages, going to work, and we should be home before 8, for example, and go after. It was a big thing. And this is the reason, one of the reasons why Palestinians could struggle in 76 in the Land Day, when Israel tried to take 30,000 of dunams, which is a very small number in comparison to the 48. So just letting you to think about this, if you think, why these Palestinians didn't demonstrate in the 48 when they took the whole land? But then, when they came to take only 30,000 dunams, which is not a lot in comparison with what happened in the Nakba, you start to think that the people also were changed. The third generation started at 1993. I'm not saying the latest years of the 80s and the 90s, mainly because of economical reasons, and mainly because of changes inside the Israeli political regime. The Israeli political regime started to be more right-wing in one hand, but also more right-wing in the aspect of civil rights. Now the left wing in Israel, who controlled the state from 48 to the 60 to the 77, they were it was kind of a dictatorship also among the Israelis in Israel. But the change of 77, when the right wing came to the rule, to start to rule Israel, it changed also our political status and mainly economical status, with the liberalism that started and the neoliberalism that started in the 80s. So this generation of 76, the main thing that they asked is equality. This first generation mainly needed to not to be expelled, just to live. Please don't expel us like you did in 48. In 76, people asked equality. We just want to be equal. People needed equality. We just want to be like you, the Jewish, even it's, there was no more questions. We want to be equal. And then the third generation brought a new thing with it. This generation, the leadership of this generation, they said, we don't want equality. We refuse equality under the Jewish state. If you want equality, if you want to give us equality, we want it also in our conditions. Okay, equality, but we want the end of the Jewish state, and we want other kind of regime. Now, there is a lot of, some people say we want one state, which is for all of the Palestinians, and one democratic state, and then you cancel the Jewish state, then all of the Palestinians can live in one state. And some said, okay, you want to keep Israel, keep it, but without the symbols that I spoke about it before, the flag, the laws about the Jewish country, without granting the Jewish people more rights than the Palestinians. In the last 3-4 years, there is a change. I don't think I have enough time for it. Maybe in the questions, if you want, I can speak about it more. How much time do we have? 13?
30.
I still have 30 minutes? Oh, with the questions. Oh, okay.
Yes, questions. You have
10? Okay. I'll speak very, very quickly about the last slides. I want to say, in the last 10 years, and this is my this is the topic of my thesis, my research that I'm working on now. We have two major tracks. One track is political exclusion, which is there's a big storm of racist laws, like you saw, like the Muazzin law that I spoke about, the anti-boycott law, like a lot of also hate speeches from Israeli leaders. There is the proper plan that I spoke about. I spoke about in the other lecture. And the proper plan is a law that is about the Palestinians in the Negev, al-Naqab, and this law is trying to finish the unfinished case of the Nakba. What they are trying to do is, there is 40 villages in the Naqab. It's in the south of Palestine, in the desert, and they live in total unrecognized unrecognized villages, which means they don't have electricity, they don't have water, they don't have any infrastructure, and they for the moment they live there, they could have their own life there. And imagine that what they want to take now is 800,000 of land, and to put these Palestinians, these Bedouin Palestinians in the Negev, these 40 villages, to put them in poor neighborhoods of 2-3 Arab cities, but also very bad, like not good infrastructure Arab cities, but to put them in Shura, for example, and in other places. So now this is one of our main struggles. If you're interested in the struggle, this struggle is one of the main struggles now. I was part of very big demonstrations in the last year, mainly in 2013, against this problem. We could freeze it for some time, for 2-3 years after we made very huge demonstrations, and now it's starting again. We call it the second proposal plan. We don't know how bad it will be. Now, more things that happened in the last years. They outlawed the Islamic Party. They put it under out of the law mainly because of their work on Al-Aqsa, to protect Al-Aqsa from the from the Israeli attack in the last years. There is attack against NDA. NDA is Tajammu' Party. Islamic Party is with the leader. Its leader is Ra'ad Salah. It's a very famous sheikh. And NDA, one of its leaders is Hanim Zu'bi. Just for you in order to know who we are speaking about. Now, in this major track of political exclusion, we have the economic containment. The Israelis, because, I don't know if you want to ask about it later, but because of the changes in the economical system in Israel, they need now to invest money in the Palestinian villages. They need to do it because of a lot of reasons. But mainly because they can't, I'll give one example. If you invest 1,000 euros in a village, a Jewish village, or a Jewish city, Jewish people in general, you get 1,000 euros. If you invest 1,000 euros, you get 1,000 euros. But if you invest 1,000 euros in the Palestinian village, in a Palestinian village, and the Palestinian people, you get 5,000 euros. And this is the main reason why they are doing these main two tracks. Now, what they are doing, everything that I told you now doesn't make sense that they're investing in the Palestinian minority. What they are trying to say is to connect this investment with loyalty to Israel. If you want to work, if you want to have money as a mayor of a city, you should give us, for example, people to go to the civil service. We call it civil service. It's service that they do in hospitals and stuff. And mainly because in order to change their identity. So this is the new thing, and I think I didn't publish my research yet, but the research will be about this, and there is very interesting. I spoke with a colleague of mine, actually my lecturer, and the colleague of mine did something else, but my lecturer he's a Jewish guy, and he spoke with people from the government, and they told him what happened and how they discussed a new economical investment, which is 15 billions of shekels, which is something like 4 billion euros, and they said very interesting things. Now, and I can tell you what from this we could know what they can achieve. One thing that they are achieving is demography, because they have very certain researchers saying if you give people money, if their economical status is better, they bring less kids to war. Second thing that they are achieving is it's when they give money to the Palestinians and then they have incitement against them. Netanyahu, for example, in the day of the election, he said, in the day of the election day, he went to the TVs and said, the Arabs are going to vote. Go vote for now and save us from the Arabs. They are going to control the state. And in this thing, Netanyahu, and this is the theoretical part of my thesis, that neoliberal leaders, they can't control without giving treatment to their poor people. They need to give their poor people incitement against other people, some external threat, something big that is coming to us. Now, why it's very big in the last 2-3 years against Palestinians? The reasons that we have for the moment, I don't know how my research will develop, but my reason now is that before the Palestinians in Israel, there was a threat of Iran. Iran was, and who knows who speaks Hebrew or just someone who listened to Netanyahu, he was saying the word Iran 100 times in one speech. Iran, 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 Iran. So the people, if you say Iran before the election day, if you bring a video how Iran will destroy Israel, now we'll leave it if it's right or not, but just how they think about it. Now when Iran had the agreement with the West in 2014, he stopped. He couldn't say it anymore. He can say it sometimes, but still, it's not serious if you say Iran. All the world, all the Western nations made this, countries made this agreement with Iran, and you now are coming to us say Iran again. So he saw that Palestinians, he had very certain polls about what's happening inside of the Israeli society, and incitement against Palestinians could let him win the last election. Now he is for 9 years, and this is in Israel very rare. Soon he will be the most elected Netanyahu. He will be the most elected Prime Minister of Israel after Ben Gurion. So you need a lot of legitimacy, and this is very important. Legitimacy is a very important word in politics, maybe the most important even, when we are speaking about leaders. Now, the last point. Sorry for being late. The last point that I'm going to speak about is the strategic importance of the Palestinians in Israel. I think, and this is, I'm writing also both as a researcher and as an activist, and also because I know that I'm in Turkey. I'm not in the US. I'm not trying to tell anyone that we have a just case I'm not trying to have your empathy with the Palestinian. Okay? I know that you have enough empathy, maybe sometimes more than us, the Palestinians. Sometimes you have the bear hug, you know. with your love. So let's think about what's the strategic importance, and then maybe we can listen from you. What are the things that we can do together, or what are the things that you're interested in? First thing is, if you have Palestinians inside of Israel and they save their identity, when I'm speaking identity, I'm not speaking from a right-wing place, I'm speaking about identity from also a political say. It's identity like to say we are Palestinians and we refuse the Jewish state. Now imagine Israel could expel all the Palestinians from Palestine and stay only Jewish. It could be way easier to Israel to be declared as a Jewish state from everyone. Now if we will say we accept the Jewish state, we'll give them the biggest gift. It will be a Jewish state forever. But it will be a Jewish state for a lot of time. It will have way more legitimacy. But when a citizen say, no, this is not my state, even if I'm a citizen, this is a very big strategical point. Analyzing Israel from inside, I think because we have, I speak Arabic and Hebrew, and a little bit of English, as you see, and few words in German, by the way. So I think I saw a lot of. We also not only know the language. There is a philosopher says you can understand people when you understand their jokes. So we understand the jokes of them. We live there. We know the communication between the language and the nation. It's not only to know the language and to read them from outside. So we can give analyzing from inside to Israel. Exposing Israeli policies in the world, very important to say, hey, Israel is still, it's not a Western democracy as it said. Still there is people inside of Israel that are not satisfied, citizens of Israel that are not satisfied. Saving holy Muslim and Christian places, this is, I'm not a part of the Islamic Party, but they did not making propaganda for them, but I can say they made a great job, especially in Al-Aqsa Mosque. I don't know whom of you were in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there is the Musalla al-Marwani. They built the whole Musalla when the Israelis didn't notice that, or just for political reasons they let them do that, and this is why mainly they were outlawed, the Islamic Party, because they also took. Of course, you heard about the Murabitun. There are people that the Islamic Party took them to them. So this is the fourth point. Saving the struggle from inside, demonstrating from inside, doing what we can do from inside. Identity, I spoke also about. Imagine, there is a lot of Palestinians. There is some Palestinians, I didn't speak about them. The Druzi Palestinians, the religion Druzi people, they fully became Israelis. They don't say we are Druzi Palestinians or Druzi Arabs, and they work with they for example join the army and they fight in the army. So imagine all of the Palestinians in Israel were the opposite, were now in the army. So the Muslim and the Arab world have them and not have them against them. So, and the return to right to Palestine, which is very important. In the last years, a lot of people inside the Palestinian minority in Israel, they are just going to there to expelled villages and live there. For example, in Ikret, in Bir'am, Al-Ghamsiyya, and a lot of villages that were expelled in 48, we are starting to go to them, even if we're camping for a few days. More and more people that will go, it will also rise the right of refugees, not only in Palestine, the refugees out of Palestine. It will raise the case again of the struggle for the right of Palestine, the right to go back to Palestine again. Thank you very much for listening.